The broken bond. The perfect life that was never real. The morning sun painted the Crimson Vale Pack territory in shades of gold and amber. Arya stood in her small herb garden, her fingers gently brushing against the lavender plants. She was humming softly, a tune her mother had taught her before she passed. Today was supposed to be the happiest day of her life. Tonight she would mate with Devon. Arya was an Omega, the lowest rank in the werewolf hierarchy. But Devon had promised her that rank didn't matter. He was the alpha son, strong and handsome with dark hair and green eyes that seemed to see right through her. For 3 years, he had courted her, bringing her flowers and whispering sweet promises under the full moon. "You're different from the other she-wolves," he would say. "You have a kind heart. That's what I love about you." Arya believed him. Why wouldn't she? Devon was her first love, her only love. And tonight, in front of the entire pack, he would mark her as his mate. She would become the future Luna of Crimson Vale. She picked fresh chamomile and mint, humming as she worked. These herbs would be perfect for the calming tea she planned to drink before the ceremony. Her hands were steady, but her heart was racing with excitement. "Arya!" a voice called out. She turned to see Celine, her best friend since childhood, running toward her. Celine was a beta female with beautiful golden hair and bright blue eyes. She was everything Arya wasn't: confident, bold, and strong. But despite their differences, they had been inseparable for years. "Celine, you're here early," Arya said with a warm smile. Celine hugged her tightly. "Of course I am. It's your big day. I wanted to help you get ready." Her smile was wide, but something flickered in her eyes that Arya didn't notice. Something cold. "Thank you," Arya said, her eyes filling with grateful tears. "I don't know what I'd do without you." "You'll never have to find out," Celine replied, her voice sweet as honey. The shadow of doubt. The day passed in a blur of preparation. The pack females helped Arya bathe in rose water and dress in a simple white gown. It wasn't fancy, but it was beautiful. Arya's long chestnut hair was braided with wildflowers, and her brown eyes sparkled with hope. As the sun began to set, Arya felt a strange pull in her chest. Something felt wrong, like a distant warning bell. Her wolf, usually quiet and gentle, was pacing restlessly inside her mind. "Are you nervous?" asked one of the older Omega females, adjusting Arya's flower crown. "Maybe a little," Arya admitted. "It's such a big step." "Devon is a good man," the woman said kindly. "You're lucky." "Lucky." Yes, Arya thought. She was lucky. But why did her wolf keep whimpering? As evening approached, Arya needed to find Devon. She wanted to see him before the ceremony, just for a moment. She knew it was tradition not to see each other, but her heart needed reassurance. She walked through the pack house, her bare feet silent on the wooden floors. The building was empty. Everyone was already gathering at the ceremonial clearing. But she heard voices coming from Devon's private chambers. One voice was Devon's. The other was female. Arya's heart clenched. She told herself it was probably just his mother or sister. But her wolf was growling now, a low warning sound. She shouldn't listen. She should turn away. But her feet carried her forward. She pressed herself against the wall near his door, which was slightly open. The cruel truth unveiled. "Are you sure about this?" the female voice asked. It was Celine. Arya froze. Why was Celine in Devon's chambers? "Of course I'm sure," Devon replied, his voice cold. "Tonight, everything falls into place." "But what about Arya?" Celine asked. "Won't she be heartbroken?" Devon laughed. It was a harsh, mocking sound that Arya had never heard from him before. "Heartbroken? That pathetic Omega? Celine, she's been a useful tool, nothing more." Arya's breath caught in her throat. Her hand flew to her mouth to stop the gasp. "A tool?" Celine's voice held no sympathy, only curiosity. "My father needed me to appear compassionate, to show the pack that even an Omega could have value. It was good politics," Devon explained. "And Arya was so easy to manipulate. A few kind words, some flowers, and she believed I loved her." But tonight, I'll reject her publicly. The pack will see what happens to wolves who reach above their station. And then you'll choose me as your true mate, Celine said, her voice filled with satisfaction. Exactly. A beta female, strong and worthy. Not some weak omega who spends her days playing with herbs. They laughed together, and the sound shattered something deep inside Arya's chest. She stumbled backward, her vision blurring with tears. Her whole body was shaking. 3 years. 3 years of love, of promises, of believing she mattered. All a lie. Her wolf howled in agony inside her mind. The pain was physical, like claws tearing at her heart. Run, her wolf begged. Run now. But Arya couldn't move. She was frozen, broken, her world crumbling around her. The public execution. Somehow, Arya found herself at the ceremonial clearing. She didn't remember walking there. Her body moved on instinct while her mind screamed in silent horror. The entire Crimson Veil pack was gathered. Over 200 wolves, all dressed in their finest clothes. Torches lit the clearing, casting dancing shadows. At the center stood a raised platform where the mating ceremony would take place. Alpha Victor, Devon's father, stood at the front. He was a massive man with silver-streaked hair and eyes like ice. Beside him stood Devon, looking handsome in his ceremonial robes. And next to Devon, wearing a smug smile, was Celine. Arya walked forward through the crowd. Wolves parted for her, some whispering, some staring. She climbed the platform steps, her legs shaking. Arya, Alpha Victor said, his voice booming across the clearing. You stand before your pack to be joined with my son, Devon. Do you accept this bond? Arya opened her mouth, but before she could speak, Devon stepped forward. I reject this bond, he announced loudly. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Arya felt the world tilt. What? She whispered. Devon's green eyes, once so warm, were now filled with disgust. I, Devon of Crimson Veil, reject you, Arya, as my mate. You are not worthy to stand beside an alpha. But, you said you loved me. Arya's voice was barely a whisper, but in the shocked silence, everyone heard. Love. Devon laughed cruelly. I was teaching you a lesson, Omega. Know your place. The crowd murmured. Some looked uncomfortable, but none spoke up. No one defended her. Alpha Victor stepped forward, his face twisted with false anger. You dare try to seduce my son? You dare reach above your station? I didn't. He asked me. Arya tried to explain, but her voice was drowned out. Silence. Victor roared. You have brought shame to this pack. You used your Omega tricks to manipulate my son. That's not true. Arya cried out, tears streaming down her face. Celine stepped forward, her face a mask of fake sympathy. I saw her, Alpha. She's been using herbs to create love potions. I tried to warn Devon, but she had him under a spell. Liar! Arya shouted, finding her voice. Celine, you know that's not true. You're my friend. I was never your friend, Celine said coldly. I was keeping watch on you for Devon, making sure you didn't suspect anything. The betrayal was complete. Her mate, her best friend, both had played her for a fool. The mark of shame. For your crimes against the Alpha's family, Victor announced, you will be marked and banished. No, Arya Bride. Please no. 2 beta males grabbed her arms, holding her in place. Victor drew a silver blade from his belt. Silver burned werewolves, leaving permanent scars. Please, Arya begged, her pride finally breaking. I'll leave. I'll go quietly. Just don't. Victor pressed the blade against her cheek and dragged it down in a single brutal stroke. The pain was indescribable. Arya screamed, the sound echoing through the forest. The silver burned through her skin, leaving a jagged scar from her temple to her jaw. Blood dripped down her face. Her vision went white with agony. Let this mark remind all who see you of your shame, Victor said. You are banished from Crimson Veil. If you return, you will be killed on sight. The beta males dragged her off the platform. The pack watched in silence. Not one wolf protested. Not one voice rose in her defense. They threw her at the edge of the territory, at the border of the Deadlands, a barren, dangerous stretch of wilderness where rogues and wild beasts roamed. No Omega had ever survived the Deadlands alone. Go, one of the betas said, not unkindly. And don't come back. Arya stumbled forward, her hand pressed against her burning cheek. Blood soaked through her white dress. Her flower crown had fallen off somewhere, trampled in the dirt. She walked into the darkness, leaving behind everything she had ever known. Behind her, she heard the ceremony continuing. Devon would mate with Selene tonight. They would celebrate while she died alone. Into the darkness. Arya walked for hours, maybe days. Time lost meaning. Her cheek throbbed with every heartbeat. She was weak, hungry, and her white dress was torn and stained with blood and dirt. The Deadlands lived up to their name. The trees were twisted and dead. The ground was cracked and dry. No prey lived here. No water flowed. It was a place of death. She collapsed under a dead tree, her body giving out. Her wolf was silent now, too weak to even whimper. "I'm sorry," Arya whispered to the empty night. "I'm sorry I wasn't strong enough. I'm sorry I believed them." She closed her eyes, ready to die. But death didn't come. Instead, she heard footsteps. Many footsteps. She forced her eyes open and saw figures surrounding her. 6 wolves in human form, dressed in black leather armor. Warriors. Their eyes glowed in the darkness, and their presence radiated power. "Is she alive?" one of them asked. "Barely," another replied. "Look at that scar. Silver blade. Banished and marked. Whoever did this wanted her to suffer." A 7th figure emerged from the shadows. He was tall, powerfully built, with jet black hair and eyes the color of storm clouds. A scar ran across his throat, a mark of survival. His presence alone made Arya's weak wolf stir with recognition. This was an alpha, not just any alpha. This was power beyond anything she had ever felt. He knelt beside her, his expression unreadable. "Who did this to you?" Arya tried to speak, but her voice was gone. "She's dying," one of the warriors said. "Should we leave her?" The alpha studied her face, his eyes lingering on her scar. Something flickered in his expression, recognition perhaps, or memory. "No," he said firmly. "We take her with us. Commander Kale, she's an Omega. She'll slow us down." Another protested. Kale, so that was his name. He looked at his warrior with cold authority. "I gave an order. We take her." Strong arms lifted Arya from the ground. She wanted to protest, to ask why, but darkness was pulling her under. The last thing she heard was Kale's voice, quiet and filled with an emotion she couldn't name. "No one deserves to die alone in the Deadlands. Not even a broken Omega." Then, finally, the darkness claimed her. The transformation. Awakening in the Shadow Fortress. Arya woke to softness. That was the first shock. For days, or had it been weeks? She had known only pain and hard ground. Now she lay in a bed with clean sheets that smelled of pine and something else. Something wild and powerful. Her hand moved to her cheek. Bandages covered the left side of her face, and beneath them, she could feel the raised, rough skin of her scar. The silver burn had healed, but the mark was permanent. She would carry Devon's cruelty on her face forever. "You're awake." Arya's head turned quickly, and she immediately regretted it. Pain shot through her body. A woman stood in the doorway, tall, muscular, with short silver hair and kind gray eyes. She wore the same black leather armor Arya remembered from the Deadlands. "Where am I?" Arya's voice was hoarse, barely a whisper. "The Shadow Fortress. You're safe here." The woman approached with a cup of water. "I'm Vera, the fortress healer. Commander Kale brought you to us 3 days ago. You were barely alive." Arya took the cup with shaking hands and drank. The water was cool and sweet. "Why did he save me?" Vera's expression softened. "That's a question only he can answer. But the commander doesn't do anything without reason. Rest now. When you're stronger, he'll want to speak with you." Over the next week, Arya slowly regained her strength. Vera tended her wounds with expert care, using herbs and medicines Arya had never seen before. The fortress was unlike anything she had imagined. It was built into the side of a mountain, with walls of dark stone and towers that reached toward the sky. Warriors trained in the courtyards below, their movements precise and deadly. These weren't ordinary pack wolves. These were elite fighters. "What is this place?" Arya asked Vera one morning as her bandages were changed. "The Shadow Fortress is home to Commander Kale's army," Vera explained. "We're not a traditional pack. We're wolves who were betrayed, abandoned, or cast out by the corrupt pack system. The commander gives us purpose. He gives us family." "An army of outcasts," Arya murmured. "An army of survivors," Vera corrected. "Like you." Meeting the commander. On the 8th day, Arya was finally strong enough to leave her room. Vera led her through stone corridors lit by torches. Warriors nodded respectfully as they passed. Some stared at Arya's scar with recognition in their eyes. Many of them bore their own scars, marks of their past suffering. They arrived at a large wooden door. Vera knocked twice. "Enter," came a deep voice from within. The room was an office with maps covering the walls, books lining shelves, and weapons displayed like art. Behind a large desk sat Commander Kale. In the daylight streaming through a high window, Arya could see him clearly for the first time. He was younger than she expected, perhaps 30. His black hair was tied back, revealing sharp features and those intense storm-gray eyes. The scar across his throat was a thin white line, a mark of survival. He wore simple black clothing, but power radiated from him like heat from a fire. "Sit," he said, gesturing to a chair across from his desk. Arya obeyed, her heart pounding. This close, she could feel his alpha aura. It was overwhelming, but different from Alpha Victor's crushing dominance. Kale's power felt controlled, purposeful. "How are you feeling?" he asked. "Better. Thank you for saving me." Arya kept her eyes down, Omega instinct making her submit to his authority. "Look at me." It wasn't a request. It was a command. Arya raised her eyes to meet his. He studied her face, his gaze lingering on her scar. "Who did this to you?" His voice was quiet, but she heard the steel beneath it. "Devon, the alpha son of Crimson Veil Pack. He rejected me at our mating ceremony. His father marked me with silver and banished me." "Why?" Arya's throat tightened. "Because I'm an Omega. Because I believed his lies. Because I was foolish enough to think I could be loved." Something flickered in Kale's eyes. "Love is the cruelest weapon," he said softly. "I know this well." Silence fell between them. Arya sensed a story behind those words, a pain that matched her own. "You have two choices," Kale said finally. "First choice. Vera will give you supplies, money, and safe passage to any territory you choose. You can start a new life far from here, far from those who hurt you." Hope and fear warred in Arya's chest. "And the second choice?" Kale leaned forward, his eyes intense. "You stay here. You train. You learn to fight, to defend yourself, to become something more than what they told you that you were. The training will be brutal. Many quit. Some break. But those who survive become part of something greater." "Why would you offer this to me? I'm just an Omega." That word, just an Omega, tells me everything I need to know about your old pack. Kale's voice held disgust. "Here, we don't measure worth by rank. We measure it by will, by strength of heart. I've seen warriors crumble under less pain than you endured. Yet you walked through the Deadlands for days with a silver burn eating your face. You survived." Arya touched her scar. In Crimson Veil, it was a mark of shame. But the way Kale looked at it, he saw it differently. "If I stay, what happens when I fail?" she whispered. "Then you fail. But failure isn't death. It's a lesson." He stood, walking to the window. "I was once like you, betrayed by someone I trusted, left for dead. I could have stayed broken. Instead, I became this." He gestured to the fortress beyond the window. I became someone who ensures others don't have to suffer alone. Arya's decision was made. I'll stay. I'll train. Kale turned, and for the first time, she saw him smile. It was slight, barely there, but real. Good. Training starts tomorrow at dawn. Don't be late. The brutal path to strength. Dawn came too early. Arya stood in the training yard wearing fitted leather clothing that Vera had provided. Around her, 30 other warriors stretched and prepared. All of them were stronger, faster, and more experienced than her. A man approached, tall, lean, with warm brown skin and kind brown eyes. You must be the new recruit. I'm Marcus, the commander's beta and head trainer. He extended his hand. Arya shook it, surprised by the friendly greeting. Arya. Welcome to hell, Arya, Marcus said cheerfully. First rule. Everyone trains together. Alphas, betas, omegas, rank means nothing here. Second rule, you fall, you get back up. Third rule. If you quit, nobody judges you. But if you stay, we expect your best. The training was indeed hell. They ran for miles through mountain paths. Arya's lungs burned. Her legs screamed. But she pushed forward. When others finished, she was still running. Marcus ran beside her the whole time. Why aren't you lapping me? She gasped. Because nobody trains alone here, he replied. We rise together. They practiced hand-to-hand combat. Arya was thrown to the ground more times than she could count. Her body was covered in bruises. But each time she fell, someone offered a hand to pull her up. They worked with weapons, swords, daggers, staffs. Arya had never held a weapon before. Her hands blistered and bled. But slowly, painfully, she learned. The worst part wasn't the physical training. It was the mental battle. Every time she fell, Devon's mocking laugh echoed in her mind. Every time she failed, she heard Celine's cruel words. Every time she looked in a mirror and saw her scar, she remembered that night. 2 weeks into training, Arya broke. She was sparring with another recruit when her opponent's punch connected with her scarred cheek. The pain triggered something. Suddenly she wasn't in the training yard. She was back on that platform, silver burning her face, the pack watching her humiliation. She dropped her weapon and ran. She didn't stop until she reached the edge of the fortress, a quiet spot overlooking the valley. There, she collapsed and sobbed great, heaving cries that came from the deepest part of her soul. The scar hurts more than just your face. Arya looked up. Kale stood a few feet away, his expression unreadable. I can't do this, she choked out. I'm not strong enough. I'll never be strong enough. Kale sat beside her on the stone wall. You're right. His words shocked her. You'll never be strong enough to become someone else, he continued. But you can be strong enough to become yourself. The real you, not the Omega they tried to break. Not the mate who believed pretty lies. The woman who survived the Deadlands. The warrior who gets up every morning despite the pain. I don't know who that is, Arya admitted. Then let's find out together. Kale touched his throat scar. This was given to me by my mate, my fated mate. We were young, and I loved her with everything I had. But she was ambitious. She wanted power I couldn't give her. So she made a deal with my enemies. She drugged me, and while I slept, they came. They cut my throat and left me to bleed out. Arya's breath caught. How did you survive? A rogue healer found me, saved my life. When I woke, everything I believed about love, about loyalty, about mates, it was all destroyed. His gray eyes met hers. I could have died from that wound, but I chose to live. And every day since, this scar reminds me that survival is a choice. Strength is a choice. Being better than those who broke you is a choice. Does it ever stop hurting? Arya asked softly. No. But you learn to carry the pain differently. He stood, offering his hand. Come. You're not done training. Arya looked at his hand. It was scarred, calloused, strong. She took it and let him pull her up. 6 months of change. Time passed differently in the Shadow Fortress. Days blurred into weeks, weeks into months. Arya stopped counting. She trained every day. Her body transformed. Muscles replaced softness. Speed replaced hesitation. Confidence replaced fear. She learned to fight with blades, to move silently, to track, to plan, to lead. But the biggest change was internal. The scared Omega girl who had been thrown into the Deadlands was gone. In her place was a warrior. Arya stopped hiding her scar. She wore it proudly, a reminder of what she had survived and what she had become. Her relationship with Chaol grew strange and powerful. He was her commander, but also her teacher. They spent hours together, training, talking, sharing stories of their past. He taught her strategy and showed her maps of the territories. She taught him about herbs and healing, knowledge he respected and valued. Sometimes she would catch him watching her with an expression she couldn't name. And sometimes her heart would race when he was near, a feeling that confused and frightened her. One evening, 6 months after her arrival, Chaol summoned her to his office. "You've progressed faster than any recruit I've seen," he said. "Marcus says you're ready for a real mission." Pride swelled in Arya's chest. "What mission?" "There's a corrupt alpha in the Northern Territories forcing Omegas into slavery. We're going to stop him and free his prisoners." Chaol's expression was serious. "This will be dangerous. People may die. Are you ready?" "Yes, Commander. On this mission, you'll work directly with me as my partner." He handed her a black leather vest, similar to his own. "You've earned this." Arya took the vest, her hands trembling slightly. In the Shadow Fortress, this vest meant you were no longer a recruit. You were a full warrior. The mission and the bond. The mission took them 3 days north to a small, cruel pack called Ironclaw. They moved in darkness, a team of 10 warriors led by Chaol and Arya. The Alpha's compound was heavily guarded. Chaol and Arya slipped through the shadows together, their movements perfectly synchronized after months of training together. They freed the Omegas quietly, leading them to safety while Marcus and the others created a diversion. But something went wrong. The Alpha discovered them. He was a massive brute with scarred fists and a cruel smile. "Commander Chaol, I've heard of you. Come to steal my property." "They're not property. They're people," Chaol said coldly. The Alpha attacked. He was strong, vicious, and fast. Chaol fought him head-on while Arya worked to get the last Omega children to safety. Then she saw it, another warrior sneaking up behind Chaol with a silver dagger raised. "Chaol!" she screamed. Without thinking, Arya threw herself forward. She tackled the warrior and they fell together. The silver dagger slashed across her arm, burning, but she didn't care. She fought with everything she had learned, every technique, every lesson, and she won. But the pain from the silver wound was overwhelming. She collapsed. The last thing she saw was Chaol running toward her, his face twisted with an emotion she finally recognized: fear. When Arya woke, she was back in her room at the Shadow Fortress. Her arm was bandaged. Vera sat beside her bed, smiling. "You scared us," Vera said gently. "The Omegas?" Arya asked. "All safe, thanks to you." The door burst open. Chaol entered, his face a storm of emotions. "Leave us," he told Vera. Vera obeyed, closing the door behind her. Chaol knelt beside Arya's bed. "You could have died. That blade was meant for my heart." "I know. Why did you do it?" Arya met his eyes. "Because you saved me when I had nothing. Because you gave me a reason to live. Because I—" She stopped, afraid to finish. Chaol's hand cupped her face, careful to avoid her scar. "Because you're mine," he whispered. "And I am yours." Suddenly, like a thunderclap, the mate bond snapped into place. It was overwhelming, a golden thread connecting their souls. Arya gasped as emotions flooded through her. Not just hers, but his. She felt his fear when she was hurt, his pride in her strength, his deep, aching loneliness that matched her own. "How?" she breathed. "How did we not feel this before?" Marcus appeared at the door, his expression grave. "Commander, we found something in the old Alpha's records. Arya's blood work from when we first saved her." "And?" Chaol demanded. "She was being poisoned. Wolfsbane administered in small doses over years. It suppressed her wolf, weakened her, and blocked her ability to sense a mate bond. Rage, pure and cold, radiated from Kale. Devon. He was poisoning me? Arya whispered, horror and understanding washing over her. Keeping me weak and compliant. That's why I never fought back. Why I never questioned. My wolf was dying slowly, and I didn't even know it. Kale's arms wrapped around her carefully, mindfully of her wounds. He will pay for this. They all will. Arya pulled back to look at him. Kale, Devon is now Alpha of Crimson Vale. His father died 3 months ago. He's been raiding smaller packs and forcing their Omegas into servitude. Everything your army fights against, he's doing. Then we'll stop him, Kale said simply.
No.
Arya's voice was steady. I'll stop him. This is my fight. But I need your help. Kale smiled, that rare, beautiful expression. Always. We're partners now. In all things. He leaned forward and kissed her. It was nothing like Devon's calculated kisses. This was real, fierce and gentle and absolutely right. The mate bond sang between them, a perfect harmony. When they parted, Arya touched her scar and smiled. I'm ready to go home, not to beg forgiveness, not to hide, but to make them face what they created. And what's that? Kale asked. Their worst nightmare, the reckoning, return to Crimson Vale. The full moon hung heavy in the sky as Arya stood at the border of Crimson Vale territory. 7 months had passed since she was thrown into the Deadlands to die. 7 months that had changed everything. She wore black leather armor that fit like a second skin, weapons strapped to her body with expert precision. Her chestnut hair was pulled back in a warrior's braid. And her scar, the mark Devon had given her. She wore it openly, no longer a symbol of shame but a badge of survival. Beside her stood Kale, his storm-gray eyes scanning the territory with tactical precision. Behind them, hidden in the forest shadows, waited 50 of the Shadow Fortress's best warriors. Are you certain about this plan? Kale asked quietly. He wasn't questioning her judgment. He was giving her one last chance to change her mind. Arya touched the small vial hanging around her neck. Inside was a clear liquid, an antidote to wolfsbane that Vera had created. I'm certain. Devon needs to face what he's done. And the Omegas he's enslaving need to be freed. He'll try to kill you the moment he recognizes you. I'm counting on it. Arya's smile was cold and confident. But he won't recognize me. Not at first. Marcus approached from the tree line, his expression serious. Commander, scouts report that Alpha Devon is hosting the summit of Southern Alphas tonight. 20 Alpha leaders from surrounding territories will be in attendance. Perfect. Arya had planned for this. The summit was a gathering where Alphas discussed territory disputes, trade agreements, and alliances. It was also where Devon would show off his power and try to gain more supporters for his cruel Omega policies. Then tonight, the summit witnesses the truth, Arya said firmly. Kale's hand found hers, their mate bond humming with shared determination. Remember, you're not alone in this. We move together. Together, Arya agreed. The infiltration. Arya entered Crimson Vale territory alone, disguised by a spell from one of Kale's witches. The magic masked her scent and altered her appearance slightly. Her scar was hidden, her features softened. She looked like a traveling beta female seeking shelter. The pack house was decorated for the summit. Torches blazed, and the scent of roasted meat filled the air. Wolves in fine clothing moved about, serving the visiting alphas and their entourages. Arya walked through the doors as if she belonged there. Her heart pounded, but her expression remained calm. She had learned to control her fear, to weaponize it instead of letting it control her. You there? A voice called. Arya turned to see an Omega female, thin and exhausted, carrying a heavy tray. Are you here to help with the serving? Yes, Arya lied smoothly. Thank the moon. We're short-staffed. Alpha Devon punished 3 Omegas this morning for being too slow. The Omega's voice was flat, dead. Arya recognized that tone. It was how she used to sound. What's your name? Arya asked gently.
Luna.
But names don't matter much here. We're just servants. Luna handed her a tray loaded with wine cups. Take this to the main hall. And whatever you do, don't look any alpha in the eye. Devon gets angry if Omegas show disrespect. Arya took the tray, her jaw tight with controlled fury. This was exactly what she had expected. Devon hadn't just continued his father's cruelty, he had expanded it. She entered the main hall and there he was. Devon sat at the head of a long table, laughing loudly at something another alpha said. He looked exactly the same. Handsome, confident, cruel. His green eyes sparkled with arrogance. And beside him, wearing a Luna's crown of silver, sat Selene. Selene looked different. Her golden hair was styled elaborately, and she wore an expensive blue dress. But there was something wrong with her smile. It was forced, brittle. Her eyes darted nervously to Devon, seeking approval. Arya moved through the room, serving wine and listening. The alphas were discussing territory expansion, Omega management, and something that made her blood run cold, a proposal to create Omega breeding programs. It's simple economics, Devon said, his voice carrying across the hall. Omegas are a resource. We breed the strong ones, use the weak ones for labor. It maximizes pack efficiency. Several alphas nodded in agreement. Others looked uncomfortable but said nothing. And what of the Omegas who resist? Asked an older alpha with gray in his beard. Devon's smile was cruel. We mark them. Silver scars remind them of their place. He touched his own cheek, mimicking where he had scarred Arya. I marked one particularly defiant Omega months ago. Haven't had a problem since. Example setting works. Laughter rippled through some of the alphas. Arya's hands trembled on her tray, but she kept her face blank. Not yet. Not until the time was right. The web unravels. Over the next 2 hours, Arya worked silently, observing everything. She watched Devon drink heavily, his arrogance growing with each cup. She watched Selene flinch when he spoke harshly to her. She watched the Omegas move like ghosts, beaten down and hopeless. And she planted seeds of doubt. I heard Alpha Devon's father died under suspicious circumstances, she whispered to one Alpha's beta while refilling his wine. Some say Devon poisoned him to take power early. To another group, she murmured, they say Devon's Luna wasn't his true mate, just a political arrangement. I wonder if he's even capable of finding a fated mate.